Hey everybody, this is Captain Kyle. I'm here to talk about Revolution of the Daleks, the 2021 New Year's Day festive special featuring Doctor Who. And as with just about any episode that features Jodie Whittaker, it gets both love and hate. We're going to talk about both. Warning, there will be a lot of spoilers. Let's do it. So a little background, this whole thing starts out with a flashback to the last special with the Dalek and its defeat. But now we get to see what happens to the remains. They get stolen and the driver is killed. Not very nice. Now in the present, things have changed. When we last left the Doctor, she had been arrested and imprisoned for crimes that were committed by previous selves that she probably can't even remember. And since she's in prison and it is a sci-fi show, she has the most uncomfortable looking bed. Now back on Earth, the remains of the Dalek have been examined and they've made non-lethal security drones that look like, well, Daleks. And they're gonna mass produce them. I can't see anything that could go wrong with that. And the Secretary for Defense must know they can fly because during the demo she's not like, what about stairs? And it's industrialist Jack Robertson behind the whole thing. Yeah, you remember him from the Spider one? In the meantime, the Doc's fam, Yaz and Graham and Ryan, have been without the Doc for a long time. And Yaz is pretty obsessed about finding the Doctor. Graham and Ryan, not quite so crazed. And they find out about this Dalek thing and they start to investigate, which means basically approaching Jack Robertson in a parking lot and saying, "Reveal your evil plan!" It's great investigating. Oh, and they have the Master's TARDIS, not that they can fly it. But meanwhile, back at the prison, Captain Jack Harkness shows up to break her out, and he succeeds. So we got a lot of great Doctor Who elements here. We've got, of course, the Dalek connection, we got Captain Jack, we've got a silence, we've got an ood, we've got a weeping angel, all kinds of stuff. And we get lots of ties in with the previous Doctors. I'm sure I missed some stuff. And if you're a fan of Misfits, we got to see Curtis. But again, we still have people hating on this episode. Overall, I think it was a pretty solid episode. It had ties to a previous adventure, it had a classic villain, and we even had a character that goes way back to the 9th Doctor, and he even said the R word. Now, are there similarities to previous episodes? Absolutely. I mean, there was a little bit of like Churchill's Army of the Daleks back in World War II, and there have been plenty of episodes where some inventor incorporates alien technology into something and it tries to kill everyone. And we even got a little bit of social commentary on security versus freedom, but it wasn't over the top. But it was a solid romp. It wasn't Blink or The Girl in the Fireplace. It wasn't the best episode of all time, but it was a solid adventure. Things happened. It was good. Now, I do have to say that some of the hate is still from butthurt fanboys who are still upset that the Doctor's a woman. And they really hate that Chibnall has expanded the Doctor's origin to make her the timeless child, and that there's this whole bunch of prior regenerations before the first Doctor that we don't know anything about. But really, this episode answered a lot of the normal complaints and put them to rest. It doesn't have characters and villains from previous Doctors. Well, we got Captain Jack, Weeping Angel, the Silence, and Ood, and of course the Daleks. We even got a reference to Gwen Cooper. There's too many companions. Honestly, I don't totally disagree with that complaint, but now Graham and Ryan have decided to stay on Earth, so fewer companions. This Doctor is always revealing your plans so there's no surprises. Well, we got a surprise and a really cool scene with all the Daleks rushing into the TARDIS. It just wasn't the right TARDIS, which was the point. Though it does kind of stink that this other TARDIS with a working chameleon circuit is now gone. Even used, I imagine they would fetch a pretty penny on space eBay. But I suppose the Daleks are enough of a threat to warrant the sacrifice. But now, of course, all the complainers, it's too much like the older episodes. Same old, it's a tired Dalek plot. Think about it, the Daleks are not exactly the most complex of villains. They want to exterminate, and the Doctor will stop them. And all the characters acted as they should, in character. Robertson's betrayal, totally in character, though the fact he wasn't killed immediately by the Daleks was a little bit of a surprise. And Ryan's decision to stay on Earth was no big surprise, not that it should have been. They gave us all kinds of hints last season and throughout this episode, and obviously it shouldn't have been a surprise. It's obviously something he was thinking about for a while and not a decision you just make like willy-nilly, as they say. And Graham staying with him totally made sense. And Yaz staying, well, considering how obsessed she was, that was no surprise either. And Jack, of course he was flirty as ever, made Graham a little uncomfortable, but he also acted as a very knowledgeable sounding board for the Doctor. And the new Prime Minister, who was the Secretary of Defense, got hers, which she deserves totally. I mean, she was the one who leaked the information that got the driver killed and the Dalek remains stolen and started this whole thing. So there, karma, ha! Was the episode perfect? No. I mean, the amount of time it took them to get to Japan and the TARDIS seemed a little odd. It's usually instant or they kind of gloss over that. And I really felt that the guilt that the three companions heaped on the Doctor for leaving them alone for 10 months was really a bit much. I mean, she was in prison for decades. What about that? And the TARDIS is probably the one who decided to bring her to that time period because it detected there was a problem that she needed to attend to. It wasn't her fault, and hey, she was in space jail for a long time. Give her a break. Now, the whole message about, well, using the Daleks as security drones to break up civil unrest, which looked like protests to me, you know, a mock protest, that kind of got lost when the Daleks started killing people. I also wonder, why did Captain Jack go through all the trouble of breaking the Doctor out? Was it just because he wants to save the Doctor? I mean, it's valid, but I kind of expected that he wanted some favor from her. And I guess it turned out not to be the case. It just felt a little unresolved. On the plus side, we had great story elements, awesome special effects, and a more cohesive story than Wonder Woman 84. And what's funny, if we swapped in David Tennant with the exact same story and dialogue, people would be gushing over this episode. But since it's Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall, it's getting shat upon. I mean, I'm not saying that everything Chibnall has done for the series has been good. I don't think that at all. I still think that having so many companions was a mistake. And having Gallifrey devastated, everyone killed, kind of nullifies the whole thing that the 13 Doctors did during the 50th anniversary special at the end of the Time War to save Gallifrey. And it gets rid of all the potential Time Lord plots that they were bringing back and all this other stuff. Where is the meddling monk? But the whole timeless child thing, that's something I'm willing to accept, see what they do with it. Having other previous Doctors that we don't know about is a very interesting concept with loads of potential. And he totally solved the problem of sets of regenerations. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Time Lords put some kind of mental block into the Doctor to make him or her think that there was only the standard number of regenerations. But then they removed that block, and now we can have centuries of Doctor Who. Now, as far as this episode goes, it was solid. Those who didn't like it probably, in my opinion, just don't like the current Doctor. And that's fine, you don't have to like every Doctor. Colin Baker wasn't universally liked, and I think every single Doctor has some detractors. Just don't try to bullshit and say it's anything but that. Now, those who don't like this Doctor because she's a woman don't really understand what Doctor Who is about and are very close-minded. But if you don't like the actress, that's perfectly fine. Some people can't stand Matt Smith. Yeah, it's true. So if you don't like the Doctor in the episode, no episode's gonna satisfy you. Now, as a short side note, apparently they're bringing in another companion. I mean, 2 companions are better than 3, and it certainly worked with Amy and Rory, but I still have to wonder why they feel the need to bring in another companion. Unless they want that new companion smell or perspective, since Yaz is a veteran by now. Now, word has come down that this upcoming season is to be the last for Jodie Whittaker, which has some people rejoicing. I'm very curious to see what they'll do with the next Doctor. They've already shown a past Doctor who was a woman and a person of color. Will they cast another woman or a non-white Doctor or both? Or a gender-neutral Doctor? Now, as far as any type of preference or sexual orientation, that's always been pretty, how shall we say, meaningless to the Doctor, as there's only been really one canon love interest, and she's in another universe. We don't count the Curse of the Fatal Death. But a few unanswered questions now that the Doctor escaped from prison. Is she going to be a fugitive? With Captain Jack and his reference to Gwen, might we see a new Torchwood series or special or movie or something like that? All due respect to Big Finish, but we'd like to see them on screen. And when the Doctor regenerates at the end of the season, will her companions remain, or is it a whole new batch? I'm anxious to see what new adventures await the Doctor, but as far as this episode is concerned, I rate it a solid 8 out of 10. And it's definitely an improvement compared to earlier episodes of this Doctor, particularly in her first season. But let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. And while we wait for the next series to begin, you can check out these other videos over here. You can go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow us on the social things, check out our website at fandomspotlight.com, and we'll see you next time. As always, have fun and follow your fandom.